Hi, I'm Mara, President of JEF Munich, and we're meeting today Marc, Head of the Working Group Political Content from JEF Swiss. First of all, I want to ask you, how are you and how do you deal with the situation in your country?
Well, I mean, the situation in Switzerland is pretty okay, I would say, compared to other countries, pretty much the same as in Germany. The Swiss government has the situation all overall very much under control. Yes, there is no confinement here. I mean, people are free to go out and also meet other people. You should just keep a distance of 2 meters. And generally, the Swiss government trusts people very much. That's what you can say. There are some regions also in Switzerland that have been hit a bit harder than others, most notably the canton of Ticino, which is basically located on the southern side of the Alps, and geographically it's just a prolongation of the Italian region of Lombardy. So it's 30 kilometers from Milan. So that's obviously closer to the hotspot, and there are many cross-border workers. There's a lot of economic integration with neighboring Italy. So that's clear. Also, Western Switzerland is a bit harder hit. I don't know why, maybe for closer ties to Italy. It's one hypothesis, but generally it's pretty okay here. But nevertheless, I mean, it's also for us a very difficult situation. Many people are working from home, schools are closed, shops are closed. Basically there's not much to do. You can go out for a hike, to do a bit of sports outside, but sit on your terrace and your balcony, make a barbecue if you have a garden and a grill, but that's it. Pretty much the same as in Germany.
Yeah, and what are the preoccupations of the people in your country?
Well, very much different, I would say, depending on whom you ask, but the question of the economic damage is a major issue in the meantime. I would say Switzerland has very deep pockets. The government can put a lot of money in. They can borrow pretty much indefinitely. Switzerland has a lot of money, not like other countries in Southern Europe, where I'm much more worried that the economic problems will hit them very hard. Like Italy and Spain, countries depending on tourism, for them it's going to be really, really hard. And that's probably the biggest challenge, the economic damage.
Yeah, I think it's the same for Germany. But do you have any wishes or expectations of Europe?
Well, Europe and the European Union and the nation states, I would say nobody of them has done pretty well. They all were very much surprised by the magnitude of the crisis. That's something that we can say probably undoubtedly. What I'm a bit sad of is that many people criticize the European Union, but what could it actually have done? Health policy is national competence, and national governments are in responsibility, but they haven't been prepared either. So blaming the European Union of not being prepared is a bit hypocritical, because national governments who were actually in charge of being prepared, they were not. And what I heard from an MEP, I'm Luxembourgish citizen, so I'm following also policy over there, a Luxembourgish MEP. Apparently the European Commission asked member countries in the Council end of January, when the crisis was really at its highest peak in Wuhan, shall we buy medical protective equipment and so on, masks and whatever you name it, in massive quantities? Member states said, oh, we don't need this. I mean, then you're just dishonest if you're then blaming the European Union of not doing anything. And I mean, we clearly have to blame the competent body. And the competent body in this case was the national governments, and they failed. They failed in being prepared. And now, if some media blame the European Union and try to kind of push over responsibility, well, that's not honest. And I guess we should not expect of the European Union other things than we expect of our national government. And we expect of them to do their job. Yeah. And everyone within the competences they have. And subsidiarity and federalism means that there is, for every task, a defined level of competence. Every level can decide on their own within the scope they have. But that also means that they have to assume responsibility if it goes wrong. And you cannot claim the benefits if everything goes well and move off responsibility if things turn out bad. And that's kind of what's happening at the moment. And that's why I feel that the European Union is blamed for things it couldn't have done anything about. And national governments, they messed up.
And thinking of these measures like closing borders and inhibiting inner European trade, what kind of future do you predict for the European Union?
I mean, the closing borders doesn't help if the virus is anyway on both sides, if it is already there. I mean, what helps is limiting contacts between people, but it doesn't matter whether the other person is from the other side of the border or not, because if you think like this, you also have to close borders between German states and close borders around the city. So basically, that's then, and if you extend this logic, well, then you end up with a confinement, what some countries did. And I mean, especially the German policy of closing borders is something that I don't understand it. And to me, it's like really a scandal what they did. I mean, the party of Konrad Adenauer and Helmut Kohl, big European statesmen, where is the heritage of these people gone? I don't know. I mean, this is not the European spirit. And I mean, holding back medical equipment at the beginning when the European Union, when the European Commission had to threaten Germany of taking it to the European Court, and then, well, it didn't come that far, but I mean, the German policy and the German handling of this crisis heavily disappointed me. A country that openly affirms so publicly being pro-European did the exact contrary in this crisis. Selfishness, and I mean, the crisis will be, and the economic crisis afterwards will be very hard in Southern Europe. And the entire discussion around this Corona bonds, recovery bonds, whatever name you want to give them. I mean, in the end, it doesn't matter what tag you put on it. I mean, it's a crisis that is unprecedented. And now counting cents and that doesn't live up to the magnitude of the crisis. I mean, in 2012, Mario Draghi ended the euro crisis with one single sentence: whatever it takes. And that's the sentence that I would expect from Angela Merkel. Whatever it takes. No country will be let down. Whatever it takes, we're going to put infinitely money in.
Yeah, but do you even see a chance that something good will derive out of this crisis for Europe?
If we draw the correct lessons, yes. If we don't, we really have a problem. I mean, the next health threat is just around the corner. namely multi-resistant bacteria and antibiotics, missing antibiotics. So at some point, we need to clarify this situation. That's just one example. And we can only solve such issues together, because no country in Europe is self-sufficient in anything, not even Switzerland, which fiercely claims to be independent out of the European Union, who doesn't want or is so economically integrated, but on the other hand, doesn't want to get as close as it actually is, just by fact. Not even Switzerland is self-sufficient in anything, not even food, energy, nothing. So no country in Europe is. And we should accept this situation. And the European single market needs to work also in times of crisis. And I mean, it's only together that we can get out of this crisis. And Europe, the single countries in Europe are too small to actually have the critical mass to bear such a crisis. I mean, why could China lock down Wuhan for 3 months or almost? Because they have an entire country around with industrial facilities where they could supply the locked up region. And that's what I call strategic depth. But no country in Europe has it alone. But Europe as a whole does. And I mean, there are plenty of such issues with crisis resilience, and there are more threats than one could imagine. I mean, there's also maybe one positive thing. People realize, well, these threats can occur. They are real, they are possible. Well, maybe unlikely, but there are things that are very unlikely, but they're not impossible. And if such a pandemic can occur, there are other threats that, well, why not? And we need to prepare better for those as well. Keep more reserves, for strategic reserves. Also, well, get our industry back in Europe, because it is not sustainable if we produce 90% of the medicine that we need in China or India. I mean, the strategic independence of Europe is not given at the moment. And I hope that finally this crisis shakes up every decision maker in the European Union, but also in the national government, because those are the people in the end who decide that we put our resources together to make Europe as a whole more crisis resilient. If we do this, this crisis here has done something good. But if we just ignore the problems that led us into this crisis, well, then we're just stupid. I mean, you can do mistakes, but it is extremely stupid to do the same mistake twice.
Yes. Thanks a lot for this great discussion and for all the informations you gave us. And we'll stay in touch. Hope you have a nice evening and see you soon.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.